let's talk about the new Urban Decay Naked Smoky palette. I wasn't sure if you guys were sick of hearing about this palette or not, because I know a lot of people got sent it like PR wise and stuff, so there was quite a few videos on the palette before it was even out. I purchased mine off the Urban Decay website when it became available late on the 8th, but it's at Ulta right now. I've seen it on Nordstrom's, and I also seen it on the Sephora website, so it is out everywhere now. But when I asked on Instagram, you guys wanted to still see like swatches, and I can do a review now because I've used every shade, and I've done like 3 different looks with it since I've gotten it. Here's the cardboard box that the palette comes in. It kind of mimics the actual packaging. It's really pretty. I think that the packaging on this particular palette is it's stellar. It's my favorite out of all of the Naked palettes thus far. And then inside of the box you do get a look card inside of there as well if you're into using look cards. And then here is the actual palette. It's really pretty. It kind of is reminiscent of the Urban Decay Naked on the Run style packaging with that inlay pattern over plastic. It's a really pretty packaging, and then instead of having those plastic nibs that close on the sides, it's like magnetic closure. So this is my favorite packaging out of the Naked stuff. It's really gorgeous as well. And then inside there is a mirror up here, and then you have got your 12 eyeshadow shades. Now this palette does come with a double-ended brush. I did try to use this one here for underneath my brow, and it was a little bit stiffer than I had anticipated, so I ended up switching to a little bit fluffier brush when I had used it initially. But it is a nice soft synthetic. This part here is just a little stiffer than what I was looking for at that moment, but it's a fluffy blender. And then the other side has got like a little smudger on there. So it's a nice quality brush. Over the past 3 days, I've used every single shade in this palette. And then I did do a look with these shades, a couple of these shades that's on my eyelids today, which the demo part will be towards the end of the video if you're interested in that. But 2 days, which this is my second time filming this video. I had filmed it yesterday, and I was just really, I was really frustrated with the outcome of the eyeshadow, and I do blame the usage of these matte shades over here. Based off the first time that I had used them, I kind of knew they were going to do that, but I wanted to give them another chance. The mattes blended with the mattes just don't blend for me, if that makes sense. So like from the crease up, I was doing a matte in the crease, a matte underneath the brow, and then a matte to blend out the two, like in a transition type style, and it was just a constant build and blend to try to get that to look seamless. And after a certain amount of blending, I just couldn't get any more eyeshadow to adhere to that area for the matte shadows, and this had happened twice. So the matte formula of these eyeshadows, it reminds me of that of the Naked Basics palette. So if you did have good experience with the Naked Basics, you'll probably like the mattes in here. I, for one, I could not get a pretty look out of those Naked Basics palettes for nothing. Like, they're all matte shades, and the textures of them are so thin. They just don't build and adhere to each other. I had gotten such patchy, like, they were just muddy messes. And I've tried a couple different times with Urban Decay primers, with other primers, and they're just not my favorite matte eyeshadows. So those are the matte shades, which are these ones right here. And then this shade right here, which is called Dagger, which I will get up close and read the names and give you guys swatches and stuff like that. But this shade Dagger right here, it's kind of like a satin shade. It almost feels more like the matte shades to me than any other shades that are in the palette. It's got a satin feel with a slight dose of sparkle through it that I didn't really see when I had used it on my eyes, but it did perform like these matte shades. So you do have these 4 matte shades over here, and then this Dagger shade also kind of is reminiscent of these mattes. Now all of the other shades in the palette blended really well, and everything does have good pigmentation. I don't care for the formula of the matte shades in here. And then the shade Armor right here is one of Urban Decay's classic chunky glitter type shades, which I used that shade yesterday, and I had packed it on my lid, and I was really surprised that the glitters kind of clung to my lid, and it looked really pretty. But by the time I was done with the eye look, all of the glitters on the lid were gone, kind of. Like, I didn't really see any, and they were up through the top portion of my lid and on my face. So, I mean, while the shade is really pretty, that glitter didn't stay where it was supposed to stay. In addition to the shades I just talked about, all of the other 6 shades performed really well. They blended really well. Everything was great. So I'm about a 50-50 on the palette. 50% was really good, and then the other 50% not so much. Now today when I had used the matte shadows, I did use a matte shade through the crease. I used Whiskey, and then I used the 13 underneath the brow, but instead of blending out the transition with another one of the mattes, I went in with Radar, which is a shimmery type of shade. It's not overly shimmery, but it does have like some sparkle to it. It didn't show up super shiny when I used it on my eyes, but using that shade that was not one of the matte shades in the palette, as opposed to like the Combust, which I did not like the Combust shade for transition at all. It really helped with the blending. It was so much easier to blend that shimmery shade between the two mattes as opposed to another one of the matte eyeshadows. Another thing to make note of is I don't think there's anything really unique about any of the shades in the palette. They're all kind of, by now, I'm sure we all have a neutral color like this in our collection. I did think that it was quite unique. This Smolder shade it's like a deep smoky type of purple, but when I had used it, it just kind of went on as a gray. So that's what I think about the shades. I mean, every time Urban Decay releases a naked palette, that initial excitement is like through the roof, you know? So I was kind of glad that I had used it 3 days in a row so that the excitement level not only went down, even though the first time I used it, I was not impressed with the look that came out of it. It was almost all the matte shades that I had used, and I was just like, this is just so underwhelming. It really was. I also feel that if you have all the other 3 palettes, I don't think you would need this one. I think there's comparable shades in all 3, which I'm going to show you all 3 of the other naked palettes next to this one so you guys can get a visual of them next to each other. And then I'm also going to show the Naked Basics 1 and 2 next to it so you guys can go ahead and compare those shades. But first I'm going to zoom in and give you guys some swatches of these. So here's the palette up close. As you can see, the packaging is really pretty. And then it's a magnetic closure as well. So that is what the palette looks like on the outside, and I like the packaging. I think it's stellar. And then here are your shades right here. So I'll read them off to you guys really quick. This one is High, Dirty Sweet, Radar, Armor. Now the Armor shade, this is the one that has those chunks of glitters in it. The shade is really gorgeous, but and when I had initially put it on, it was really pretty, but by the time I'd finished the look, the glitters were everywhere but kind of where I put the shade. So that's the only shade that's like that in there, but it's like that traditional chunky Urban Decay glitter type of shade. And then you've got Slanted, Dagger, which Dagger is, I'd call it like a satin, but it performs more like the matte shades. Then you've got Black Market, which is kind of a, it's a satin, I'd say, but it's thicker in texture than Dagger is. And then it's more like Smolder. Anyway, so here's Smolder, and then you've got Password, which is a matte, Whiskey, which is a matte, Combust, which is a matte, and 13, which is a matte. The first look that I did and the look that I did yesterday, like, was a perfect palette for like a grungy, smoky eye. So if you're into that, I think you'll love this palette. Because there was no way I was able to get the blend perfect on it, and then there was some fallout and stuff like that. The fallout on the palette wasn't that bad, but there was some each time that I used the look, and then of course these glitters over here did fall out on my face. So these are the 4 mattes. This is the other one that performs like one of the mattes. And then the other shades, these Black Market, Smolder, High, Dirty Sweet, Radar, and Slanted are all really nice shades. The Armor shade is really pretty as well, but it's something to make note of about those glitters not staying where they're supposed to. So let me go ahead and give you guys some swatches. I'll start off with these guys over here. And the shades are all pigmented, but like I said, those matte shades in that one satin are thinner in texture for sure. And for me, they just, I had to really work to blend them. So pretty. This color is really pretty, the one with the glitters, but those glitters kind of went all over the place. But those are really pretty. I loved these 3 shades right here as well. Then we'll do these next 4. Yeah, even to the touch, this one here feels like the matte shades do. And then the black one, which is nice, and this purple one is nice as well, but you can see how deep that purple is on. It really doesn't distinguish itself as a purple for me. So those are the next shades. And then we'll do these final 4. So those are the matte colors right there. These colors though, I really do like those ones. Now here is the palette compared to the Naked Basics 2, which is right here, and the Naked Basics 1, which is right here. Now here's a shot of the Naked 1 palette, which is on top, and then the Naked Smoky, which is on the bottom. right there. In this shot, you've got the Naked 2 on top, and then the Naked Smoky on the bottom, right there. And then lastly, you've got the Naked 3 on top right here, and the Naked Smoky on the bottom, right there. So I hope that comparison was helpful for you guys, or you guys could like pause the screen and kind of make a judgment for yourself whether or not you'd like that other one. Now I don't think it's a terrible palette, but like for me, when I use those Urban Decay mattes, I have to make sure to put something like a shimmer or a different formula eyeshadow in between them, because the Urban Decay mattes together, like matte, they just don't blend very well for me. It's just a lot of work, and then after a certain amount of trying to blend them, I won't be able to get anything to adhere to that anymore. And I do have the dry lids, and I always use a sticky base, which is, you know, what I compare when I'm speaking about eyeshadows to all the other eyeshadows I've used as well, and I don't have problems with, you know, like Makeup Forever mattes are amazing, V's-Art mattes of course are amazing, the Becca Ombre Nudes palette that I have is really amazing. Like they just build and blend and build and blend for me. So that's kind of what I compare stuff like that to. Now it's not a bad palette, and if you do have good luck with Urban Decay mattes, I'm sure you'll love the Naked Smoky. However, nothing's really unique in there. I feel like it's like a good grunge palette, or a really good grungy rock smoky eye would do the job, but I also feel like you don't need that many shades in there to create a look like that. I feel like a combination of 3 or 4 of every shade in that palette would almost kind of come out as the same type of a look almost. So anyway, that's enough rambling. If you're interested in seeing the look that's on my eyes right now, which is my favorite that came out of the palette on my third use, you can hang tight and we will get into that right now. I'm going to use my trusty RMS Uncover Up concealer today. I'm going to use the It Cosmetics brush to put this on my lid from the lash line to up underneath the brow. And it's just a light, tacky, fairly hydrating concealer, which this is one of my all-time favorite shadow bases for my dry lids. So, as you can see. I'm going to take the shade Dirty Sweet, which is this one right here, on a Goss number 18 brush, which is a flat shader. And I'm going to pack this all over the majority of the center of the lid. I think this is, so far, I think this is the only shade I have not used out of this entire palette. Because this is look 3 for me so far out of this palette. Do you guys see that? It's really shiny on the lid, but then right here it's like a different color brown, so it's kind of got a duo, almost like a duochrome to that shade. On that same Goss 18, just on the side, I'm going to go into the shade High, and I'm going to put that on the inner portion of my lid and blend it into that Dirty Sweet color. On a GSN 9, I'm going to go into the shade Whiskey, which is one of the mattes, and I'm going to put that on the outer corner, and I'm going to bring it, V it upwards. On a Chikuhodo GSN 7, I'm going to go into the shade 13, which is one of the matte colors. It's the lightest matte in the palette. And I'm going to put that underneath the brow and bring it almost, I'm going to leave like a tiny gap between that color and the matte brown color. And I'm actually going to blend out that crease with one of the shimmer shades, or the ones with a little bit of sparkle, because the first 2 looks that I did with the matte shadows, matte on matte, was, I wasn't happy with it. They don't blend very nice for me. So we'll see if this works out a little bit better. I'll do a shimmer between 2 mattes. It should work out better for sure, but. So the color I'm going to go into is the shade Radar, which is right there, and I'm going to go in with a Hakuhodo J5533 brush with that, and I'm going to go ahead and buff out that Whiskey color into the 13 color. Yeah, and that's blending so much better than if I would have chose one of the mattes. So much better. Oh my goodness. I was having troubles. This is the second time I'm trying to film this. The look I did yesterday, I just it was frustrating. And my tripod was being frustrating as well, but oh, that blends so much nicer. And it's not ultra shimmery either, that color. It's kind of, it looks like it's got a lot of shimmer, but when I put it on, it's not like mega shimmery. So that's cool. I do have some fallout here. Not like terrible, but there is some. That just worked out so much better when I had used that shimmery type of shade between the two mattes as opposed to 3 mattes together there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and finish up my eye makeup, and I'll be right back to put on some lips for you guys. I'm so much happier with the way the eyeshadow turned out today than it did the previous 2 days. 3rd time's a charm, I guess. For the lips, I've got a Marc Jacobs lip liner, and this is in the shade, it's one of their pout liners, and it's in the shade Nudist. So I'm going to go ahead and line my lips and kind of fade it inwards just a bit. I got to wipe off this lip balm. And then to fill in my lips, I've got an Urban Decay lipstick, and this is in the shade Streak, which is kind of a coral shade. I'm just going to put that in directly from the bullet. So there's the overall finished look using the new Urban Decay Naked Smoky palette. I sure hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to wear sunscreen, and I will see you guys later. Bye.